With the release of Grandia Extreme in 2002, Game Arts tried to do something a little different by incorporating dungeon crawler elements into the franchise. But that decision was controversial, with fans totally split over whether it was a good one or not. When Grandia 3 was announced in 2005 though, it seemed Game Arts was ready to bring the series back to its roots. But was Grandia 3 truly a return to greatness, and where does it rank among the other games in the franchise? I'll give you an overview of the game and answer those questions in this video, but before we get into that, please drop me a like, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell below, and leave a comment about what you remember about Grandia 3. Grandia 3 follows the story of Yuki, an eager 16-year-old boy who dreams of becoming an ace pilot like his hero, Sky Captain Schmidt. To do this, he spends his time building an airplane with his best friend Rots, but he tries to hide this from his mother Miranda. When he sees a girl in a carriage being chased by soldiers on horseback, he and Miranda attempt to save her. After a fight with some soldiers, the two learn that her name is Alfina, and that, as a being called a communicator, she has special powers to converse with guardian beasts. Yuki and Miranda agree to help Alfina find her brother Emilius, who disappeared 3 years prior to the events of the game. But as they do, they get wrapped up in events beyond their control. With Yuki's help, Alfina eventually finds Emilius, but let's just say he's not exactly as she expects him to be. One of the first things that stands out about Grandia 3 is that it's absolutely packed with full motion video cutscenes, far more than any previous Grandia game. And while I don't really like the art style, it did help develop the story, at least at first, because by the end of the game I was dreading them because they bored me out of my mind. Many of them go on way too long, and they don't even do a very good job of developing the characters, but I digress. The battles are exactly what you'd expect from a Grandia game, and it reuses the character and enemy turn cancellation system we've all become accustomed to. But this one adds aerial finishers, which you can only do if you knock a character into the air followed by another character's combo. There are also summons you acquire at key points in the storyline, and these crank out huge damage to all enemies on screen. So they did try some new things with the combat here, and I think it worked out pretty well. Remember those mana eggs from previous Grandia games? Well, they're still here as well, but they function differently than any previous entry. In this one, you equip them directly to characters, which allows them to gain special elemental-based spell bonuses. You can extract spells from a mana egg as well, but that destroys it in the process. You can also combine mana eggs together to create more powerful versions, and that behaves similarly to how it does in Grandia Extreme. Because there's only so many mana eggs in the game though, you are forced into tough decisions sometimes, and you really have to put some planning and effort into it. The skill system is extremely similar to what we've seen before in the past as well, but skill books are used to boost skills rather than mana eggs, and most of them are always active and don't require triggers to use. Remember how I said I didn't enjoy the art style in the cutscenes? Well, I admit they're of a pretty high quality, but they just come off looking corny and childlike to me, and I actually think the characters outside of these scenes, including in combat, look much better. Given that this is a late-era PlayStation 2 game, you'd be hard-pressed to find many better-looking games on the platform, but it just looks too much like a cartoon for my taste. The story itself was pretty weak in my eyes as well, especially because it just becomes a prototypical save-the-world thing. Oh yeah, and it also involves collecting crystals. Like we haven't done that enough times in, I don't know, half of the Final Fantasy games. The biggest issue too is that the story doesn't really innovate enough. The original Grandia was about coming of age and adventure, Grandia 2 was about corruption and control, and Grandia 3 is about, adventure again, I guess. It just doesn't stand out enough in its own right, and it doesn't have its own unique identity, and that's a major disappointment. And even though the voice acting was reasonably good, that doesn't compensate for the lackluster story either. Just like in Grandia Extreme, the bright spot of Grandia 3 is clearly the combat system. The aerial finishers were actually really fun to use, and they added some great dynamics to the battles. However, the summons were way too powerful and destroyed any challenge the game may have offered by the end of it. If you don't exploit the summons, it's a pretty balanced experience though, and the mana egg system actually forced tough choices, so at least the combat and gameplay interacted together well. So was Grandia 3 a return to form for the series? No, in my mind it certainly wasn't, and it probably is even worse than Grandia Extreme. If you love the series, you'll probably like this one enough to play it, but it doesn't touch the fun of the first two Grandia games whatsoever. So what do you remember about Grandia 3, and how do you think it compares to the other Grandia games? Was I too hard on it? Let me know in the comments below. Please like, subscribe, and click on that bell for more retro gaming content. If you want early access to the videos I produce like this one and other perks, please consider supporting my channel by becoming a Patreon patron or via the YouTube Join feature.